Hey everybody, it's Mike, 55 years young, and we're here with the Health Optimization Club talking about fat this week, high percentage of calories from fat. And before we get into the discussion, I wanted to kind of reiterate what our goal is here with these groups and what I hope is your goal, which is to achieve health optimization. And we define health optimization as a balanced state of health that's indicated by a lack of non-communicable disease. So that's pretty measurable. You know, if you have, most people do have a non-communicable disease. And if you do, then you're chronically ill. That's the problem. So we don't want anybody to be chronically ill, and we want you to remain like that. So in order to do that, I know that Denise and I have developed this thing through the nonprofit, which is basically our own 6-pillar healthy vegan food standard and the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So between the two of those, as far as we know right now in 2025, that's the best way.
My sisters and I went on a vegan cruise that he and Denise organized 2023. It was good. It was good.
Oh, so
I didn't. They did some raw.
Okay, there we go. I muted them. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're starting the discussion, and who wants to start first? I mean, Denise and I just rewatched the video that I did with Dr. Rogers about the dangers of high-fat foods. And does anybody have any insights, questions, comments after watching the video? I know that, Paul, I talked to you about a bunch of things, so now's a good time if you want to talk about them.
Yes. Regarding, the 10% from fat, does that, like if you're having a meal with, a salad and lots of low calorie, low fat foods, salad, typical salad, vegetables, and you have something in there with, it has a content of that individual item with the calories greater than 10%, does that balance out so you calculate it on everything or just the one item?
Well, I'd say it's everything. It should be your diet as a whole.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And I know that Dr. Rogers in the video mentioned 80-10-10, like 80% calories from carbohydrates, whole plant carbohydrates, and then 10% from protein, 10% from fat. And that's the whole diet. So you can have stuff that's a little too high and stuff that's too low, and hopefully it balances out. I mean, that's, the dangers of the salad or the dressings generally, or putting avocado or nuts in there. But as long as it balances out, that's the goal. I mean, you should be fine.
Yeah. So I did some calculations, like on the oatmeal I had, it had 3.5 total fat and 200 calories. So that came out to about, 15% calories from fat. But oatmeal is healthy. So, and same with chickpeas and kiwi, a corn tortilla and millet, those all were above the 10%.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah,
so as long as you balance it out. And that's why one of the things I asked Dr. Rogers in the video was, what does he think about white rice compared to brown rice? And he does think white rice is better. And that's because it helps to balance out when you go over, because white rice is so much lower in fat than brown rice. So as long as you're monitoring everything else, you should be able to have some things that are above 10. I mean, we do, Denise and I do. So, it's just try to keep that overall goal in mind. It's a lot of work to calculate it. That's the thing.
Well, yeah. And after a while, you get to know, what's hot, what is and what isn't. So like your vegetables and everything else that does not in packaging, they don't have labels on them, so that they're going to be low.
Well, yeah, unless it's nuts, seeds, avocados, right? I mean, avocado is definitely high. And Dr. Rogers in the video, he didn't seem like he was a fan of any avocado, from what I remember of his response to that.
Yeah. So Stephanie and I will, often have Trader Joe's sells these bags of, they call them teeny avocados. So they're small avocados.
Okay.
And Stephanie and I will often, split that and have that on our salad. So you have a half of a small avocado.
Yeah, I mean, I say as long as you're managing it like that, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. Because like on the cruise that we did, one of the things going in the second year, we noticed right away, the first day was there was too much fat in the food. I mean, I noticed it. I felt it. I can feel this kind of stuff. I felt it. And one of the things I had to talk to the kitchen about was, look, you can have some avocado in the salad. Just you have to put way less avocado than you're putting in. That's what I told them. You know, as long as it's way less than you normally do, you're fine. And I even told people at the event, I'm like, hey, don't think that the kitchen is being cheap on the avocado. It's like I told them that they have to do that.
Right.
Because it's easy to get out of control with something like that. You don't realize it because the stuff does taste good.
Yeah. And going back to rice, white versus brown.
Yeah.
I've always heard that the white rice, has all the fiber stripped away, so it's not considered as healthy as the brown rice. It can, I think they say it can spike your insulin. So it, similar to flour. So that's one of the reasons I think a lot of the plant-based doctors don't like the white rice. They always say the brown rice is much better, but so there's trade-offs there.
Yeah, I would say that everything you said I agree with. And the thing is, we don't live in a vacuum. If we lived in a vacuum, that would be totally fine to eat brown rice. The problem is, I think as Dr. Rogers acknowledged, is that the average person is eating way too high of a percentage of calories from fat. So anything you can do to bring that down is going to be a dramatic positive benefit to health. And I know that the other people who are analyzing just rice, like just white rice, just brown rice, they're going to pick brown rice because overall it is a more complete whole food. But in the real world that we live in, right, like where I believe most people are eating like 30 to 40% calories from fat, that white rice is going to be way more beneficial to the average person. That's how I keep looking at it. And even me, because I tend to want to eat high fat foods. I think everybody tends to want to eat them, Hey, is there any other folks out there? I know I muted some people. I think somebody may have turned the phone on over there in the Villages at the coffee shop, and I actually muted you because we heard everybody talking. But if you want to unmute, you want to ask any questions, feel free to do so. We're in the discussion now about the high fat foods, and one of the things that let's see, what was it? Yeah, the other thing that Dr. Rogers kind of went off on a tangent in that video, which didn't have to do with high fat foods, was just soy in general. And I noticed, Paul, you sent me some information that you found online, which I think is correct, which is that a lot of the things that Dr. Rogers said about soy that didn't have to do with the high fat content haven't really been talked about by many other people. And I don't know whether they're correct or not. It sounds like it may be correct. Because again, I think that a lot of people are just looking at things like, is one thing better than the other? Kind of like, is brown rice better than white rice? Yes, but if you're eating too much fat, then no, it's not. White rice is better. And a lot of the things with soy, he's talking about, causing people to become infertile. I guess that's what he said. And that's more research is needed. That's what I would say on something like that.
Right. And what I found was a lot of that, there's a lot of old research or, use the word propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think propaganda is a better description from the meat companies back, when soy started getting popular going back, years back.
Yeah.
And they came out with a lot of this information to fight off, the plant-based products and soy. Of course, the soy, when they're putting it into, the Impossible and, the fake meat foods is not healthy. But if you're eating it, everything I've read from the plant-based doctors, such as Greger, Bernard, Furman, Ornish, even Dr. John McDowell, who who passed away a little while
McDougal.
ago.
Yeah.
McDougal, I meant to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. He even has in his book, the starch solution, he has recipes with soy and tofu.
Yes. Yes.
So, it's something, a lot of them say, okay, yeah, some of it's good, but don't overdo it, like with everything. And
Yeah.
it has to be
Yep.
organic and non-GMO. And one of the things that Dr. Greger says, tempeh is really beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of it is too is these doctors. Let's call them more old school or traditional. The names you named, right? They've been around for a long time, and
Yeah.
back in the day, like I didn't even know what vegan was until like 2010, probably. I didn't even know what it was. So they were in a different time. That was a different era in my mind. So the question is, obviously they were doing the best work they could at the time. There's no doubt in my mind. I didn't even know what vegan was, and they were doing all this other stuff. So of course they were doing good work. The question is, have we learned more? And are we finding out new things that they didn't know about? That's how I would look at that. And then another facet with soy, and Denise and I have talked about this, is that it's funny because soy is a bean, right? And everybody's like, oh, beans are good. Beans are good. Black beans, chickpeas, and all these other things, they're good. The problem is that soy is unlike any other bean in the fat content, right? No other bean that I know of is even close to 40% calories from fat. That's what a raw soybean is. And I didn't even realize this, so we started looking into it recently. And I would say there's other foods that are like that too. And let's say nuts, right? Because Dr. Rogers said don't have that many nuts. But what about the chestnut? The chestnut is also an outlier. It's not your normal nut. It's a very low percentage of calories from fat. So that's also something that's kind of like soy in the opposite extreme, because that's a good nut, whereas soy is a bad bean if you're looking at it from a fat content. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely from a fat content, yes.
Yeah, and so I'm speaking only from a fat content, and I think that these doctors who said soy was good and the meat industry that said soy was bad, let's say back 10 years ago or so, I think that some of them information from them was right, some of it maybe was not right, just as we learn about a lot of things over time. And I'm just looking more into what Dr. Rogers says, because I think there may be some truth to that, because I do believe that, like a lot of people who are, let's say, for the meat industry, they'll say, hey, plants are sentient. Like all these leaves behind me, like if I crush one, it's going to hurt the tree, and to some degree, I guess they're correct. But to what degree, I don't know. And it could be that Dr. Rogers said, like, soy has a natural defense mechanism against pests, and it's to make them infertile. It could be the way it works. And it's just that we never took such a deep dive into it yet in recent history, so we don't know. And I'm interested to find out. That's what I'd say. I'm very interested to find out the answer to that. Because I also know, like, a lot of nuts too, I think they also have anti-nutrients in them. It's another reason why people shouldn't necessarily eat a lot of nuts, is because of that.
Yeah, even the plant-based doctors that support the nuts and seeds, they all say a small amount.
Mm-hmm.
So not bags, but just very small.
Yeah, but Paul, have you ever heard folks talk about soy as a high fat food, and that you should not eat that much soy because it's high fat? Like, I've never heard that until we kind of put this together recently.
Yeah, no, I haven't. And that's something I probably would like to, research a little more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I was mentioning, it's 40%, the bean alone is 40% calories from fat. And then tofu is on average about 55% calories from fat. And then if you fry it, which is how it is almost everywhere you go, then it's even more. So it's just super high fat in those other forms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think that Dr. Rogers was saying it was McDougall who said that, so it wasn't Dr. Rogers, but I think if I'm remembering, it's McDougall that said that eating high fat foods is like the biggest toxic load on the human body, the average person. So I guess I don't know if I've ever heard that before, but it does make sense because that's what we see everywhere when we travel is high fat foods and high sodium foods.
Oh, yeah, definitely the sodium. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then if I run the calculations, like I mentioned before, I find most of the foods that most people are eating are like 30%, 30 to 40% calories and fat. And I didn't even include the salads you get when you go out, right? Because the salads almost always have avocado, nuts and seeds. These are like if you go get a prepared salad from somebody. And then of course the dressing's usually high fat too.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's good. I mean, like we said, we talk about optimizing health, and as long as you don't have any non-communicable disease, you know you're doing it right. And if you don't, then these are all, if you still have it, then these are just tips. I think shortcuts, almost like cheat codes, if you ask me. Because if all the world is out there eating high fat foods, that's all you got to do is switch that up and you'll see some super fast improvement, I would think, the average person.
Right.
So let's
And
see.
I think all of this is aimed mostly at people that are eating a plant-based diet, because the people that are just getting into and aren't fully plant-based, I think they're learning, and there's so much to understand that it gets overwhelming. And if they start listening to a lot of the YouTube videos from a lot of the well-known plant-based doctors, and then they hear a different story from some of the other ones, it can get confusing to them.
Yes. And actually,
And
yeah, go ahead.
so what's I think the first thing is to stop eating animal products, going completely vegan. That's the most important thing. But then make sure that you're doing it right. And then the second thing is not eating the processed Impossible burgers and all the other stuff.
Yeah, you heard what Dr. Rogers said about that. I mean, he dismissed it like immediately, because I've had a lot of conversations with people saying, hey, look, this is needed because not everybody's there. Not everybody's eliminated all these animal products. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if fat is one of the major toxins in the body and they're just loaded with it, I mean, there's not much benefit from doing that. And you got to get out of that transition as soon as possible.
Of course. Yeah. It took, when Stephanie and I started, we started, we didn't know. And we, going to the, your events, in Bonita Springs and, the Veg Fest, we, listened to the, and remember Dr. Neil Bernard was there, Dr. Klapper, and some of the other ones. And then we found their videos on YouTube, and then started getting the books. And then we, started learning more. And that's when we started, eliminating the process, like the Impossible burgers and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think from what you've seen and listened to and heard from all the other folks, is that I think everybody agrees that low fat is the way to go, right? It's just that a lot of people don't get any more specific than that. They just say low fat, low fat. And Dr. Rogers is saying 10%. We're now saying 10% in our 6-pillar healthy vegan food standard. And the other person who's always said that is Dr. Doug Graham. And I just did an interview with him because he wrote a book called 80-10-10. And I know Dr. Rogers mentioned 80-10-10 in the interview that I did with him for this discussion. So that means 80% whole plant carbohydrates, maximum 10% calories from fat, and maximum 10% calories from protein. So I think that as time goes on, I think that that's what is being focused on. I mean, it's hard to say because, like you said, Paul, a lot of the doctors and big names who have been out there aren't giving a number. They're not giving a number like 10%. I haven't heard most of the names that you said, I haven't heard them say that. Have you?
No. Most of them, most of them have not. And the cookbooks, like the new Dr. Greger cookbook, it has a lot of nuts and a lot of the recipes, which we don't eat many nuts. Once in a while we'll have some, and we eat pumpkin seeds because I think the pumpkin seeds, they have magnesium and some other good stuff in it. So
Yeah,
of course
better.
we just do like a teaspoon of pumpkin seeds on our salads.
Mm-hmm. Just a small amount. Yeah, for sure. That's good as long as you manage it properly. Because let me ask you a question about this Dr. Greger cookbook, this new book. Does he list the percentage of calories from fat? Is there any way to calculate that based on the recipe, or would you have to? I mean, is there no mention of this concept, percentage of calories from fat?
I don't think there's a mention. This is the How Not to Age cookbook.
Yeah.
So I was looking, and then I went back to and looked in How Not to Diet, and he talks about fat, and I haven't finished reading that section yet. I have the book and I've gone through some of it, when it came out, but you forget everything you read, not everything, but a lot of things. So I'm going back and looking at that too.
Well, okay, here's how I look at it. I'm looking forward to the time in the near future where most of the people who are in the space are talking about the percentage of calories from fat. I think it's very important. I think it's the only way to quantify what you're doing. And because even Paul, even you're saying you're obviously managing things. You're managing the fat content in your foods probably more than most people. But like even you're saying, you're not sure because Greger, Bernard, all these other people, they don't mention percentage of calories from fat. I think that they should. I know that not everyone's there. And obviously, almost nobody's there. If everybody's eating 30 to 40% calories from fat overall, everybody has a significant amount of improvement that they can make. And I know that it can be difficult. Any kind of change is difficult. I understand that. I just want to make sure that people aren't sick. That's kind of what we're focusing on, right? We just want to tell people where they need to go. Give them a goal. That's what I would say. Because if it's just saying, yeah, go ahead.
I have an answer on Dr. Greger. He recommends in his daily dozen a handful of nuts. He doesn't say what percentage of calories from fat, but he's said it because they're a nutrient-rich food group with numerous health benefits. And studies have shown that regular nut consumption is associated with longevity and increased and a reduced risk of several diseases, including heart disease, cancer, and respiratory diseases.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know a lot of people that will have a handful of nuts and still manage to maintain their weight.
Well, here's how I
Others,
would look. Yeah, I think you and I have talked about this, Denise. I think what I would say with those is he's not, like you said, he's not giving a percentage of calories from fat. But here's the other point. Here's the other side of that coin. And I asked Dr. Rogers, I said, Dr. Rogers, are there any essential nutrients in nuts or seeds or avocados, right? Or soy that you have to get from these? Or are they optional? And his answer was they were optional, right? So Dr. Greger doesn't mention that they're optional. He just says, yeah, they are beneficial, but I want to take it a step further. Okay, there's beneficial nutrition, but do you have to get it from that type of a plant? And the answer is no. He doesn't say that. I wish he would have said that because I think that would be the next thing out of his mouth if I asked him that question. But he also knows that a lot of people are in the nuts and they don't want to give them up.
some people eat one Brazil nut a week because it's the best source of selenium. But after that is sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, whole grains, and tofu, and then mushrooms and other things that we don't even eat.
Yes.
But it is in cruciferous vegetables like cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower. But most people just eat their one Brazil nut.
Yeah, well, we don't do that.
Some of our friends, no, we don't. But some of our friends do that.
Dr. Greger says that there's a research that says eating 4 Brazil nuts once a month. So eat all 4 of them one day. So he said, well, make it the 4th of the month, can reduce your cholesterol, which is that true or not?
Well, here, I got an answer. I got an answer for all this. All the stuff that Denise read from Dr. Greger. I wish it was more specific is my response. And here's why. I think that what happens, and you say, look, well, eating a handful of nuts shows that you have 20 points lower cholesterol or whatever. I'm sure all that's true. All these little numbers. I'm sure Dr. Greger and others can pull up all kinds of statistics that say, eating the Brazil nuts is going to lower your heart disease, and by how much. The question is why? Why does it do that? And I firmly believe that the reason why that happens is because you're replacing something bad with something better. Okay? Because if you eat Brazil nuts, they're a high calorie density food, right? You're going to not eat that, I don't know, actual animal product burger that you're going to eat. Instead, you're going to eat these nuts. So that's where the benefit comes from, in my mind, is getting rid of your worst habits. I don't think it means that Brazil nuts are required, because Dr. Rogers says they're not. I don't think it means that any nuts are required. In fact, they're detrimental if you have too many, like we talked about. So I would say just focus on reducing the worst habits that you have. Focus on eliminating those, and it's going to give you the same or better results as been quoted by these doctors and medical professionals.
Right, and I guess a good question is, Dr. Greger, everything he does is based on research. He has a team of people doing the research.
Yep.
And is that research done with people eating plant-based diets, or is it done with people eating standard diets? That's one of the things I'm not sure about. And one time I saw somebody on Chef AJ's show, and I forget who he was, but I'd have to see if I can find that again. But he said that the thing about the eating taking the DHA and the DHA and he said
DHA, yeah, I know what you're talking about, the supplements.
Yeah, the vegan supplements. He says that there's a big controversy whether you really need it or not. Is it harmful? But he says if you are eating a plant-based diet, then you don't need to do it.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true, as long as you are eating a correct nutrition plant-based diet, not just vegan junk food. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's what he said. And
and that's where a lot of people say.
By the way,
go ahead.
Google says that you should not eat more than 2 Brazil nuts per day because you could get high selenium toxicity.
Whoa, yeah.
By the way.
Well, that's another factor that I believe is ubiquitous. Is life is a balance. Too much of anything can be bad. There are some exceptions to that, but for the most part, I'd say that's even true with these high-fat foods, because some of them, like you said, Paul and Denise, and you quoted from others, some of these high-fat foods can be good and show positive benefits. But like I said, I think it's because you're eliminating some worse habits that you were doing instead. But too much of these foods, these high-fat foods, obviously is going to cause serious health problems. And even if you're 100% plant-based, serious health problems. So that's why we wanted to make sure we did this on fat, because, and I wanted to include soy, because I never really, until the last year, I never thought of soy as a high-fat food. Not really. Have I, Denise? I mean, I think it's recent, right?
Yeah, no, we only recently discovered that it's 40 to 50% fat.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, it's better. Go ahead.
Yeah, tofu. And I think Paul asked early on if you should calculate the percentage of calories from fat per dish or per the whole meal. It should be for the whole meal, because I used to think that I could calculate it for the day and get away with eating 1 cupcake every day.
Oh.
But it's not, because if you look at that one sitting, if we have the cupcake as our dinner, that's way too much fat in one meal. Your body just stores it directly as fat. It doesn't matter if we just have broccoli for the rest of the day. You'll still get fat eating a cupcake a day.
Well, also, I wanted to add to that what Denise just said, that all people are different, right? I mean, I acknowledge everybody's different. Some people are more sensitive. Like, I'm super sensitive to most things, but you know what? I'm not super sensitive? Eating a cupcake, like Denise is. Denise will say right away, "Oh, I feel it on me," right? You like right away. It's in you. It's hanging on you. I don't notice that. The fat doesn't stick to me the way it does to somebody else. So everybody's a little different. But the reality is, we don't know where that cutoff line is between disease and health. So everyone should still try to do the best that you can. Still try to, if high fat diets are a problem, try to eat as low fat as you can. I think all the plant-based doctors will agree on that.
Yeah, all calories are not created equally. I was up a pound at least that week we had the cupcake.
Yeah, that was one meal. That was one cupcake at one meal.
Yeah, for one meal.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, but it just shows the variety, how everybody's affected by certain behaviors in a different way. But I think over time, like in a short term, it's a different way. But in a long term, it's like, even though I'm the canary in the coal mine and things affect me, and Denise knows this right away. Like if I eat a high fat meal, it won't stick to me and gain weight, but I'll feel like crap. I will. All right. I eat a high sodium meal. I feel like crap right away. Denise that doesn't affect her in that manner. She's not affected like that. Okay. But
Tell
I think
everyone your pool chair story.
pool chair.
Yeah. The inflatable pool chair that I accidentally left exposed in the closet.
Okay, yeah, this is not high fat, but it'll just explain to you how everyone's different and how, to the degree that everyone's different in their short-term responses. Because like I said, long-term responses, we're all going to get sick if we're not doing the right thing. Short-term, it's very different. And yeah, I have a closet where I do my videos. It's like an enclosed area when I'm not outside anyway. When I'm inside, it's a studio, and it's actually a closet that has mostly clothes in it. And it has good sound qualities because of that. So that's where I record my indoor videos. And I didn't realize it, but I was taking a class, actually. I was taking a Zoom class, and it lasted 4 hours. And every break that happened, I had to go lay down. And I had a headache, a pounding headache. I never get headaches. And I had to lay down for 10 minutes, the whole break. And I was barely recovered by the time I went to the next hour. It kept getting worse through all 4 hours. And I said to Denise, I was like, look, something's in the closet. I know, because I'm totally fine when I get out of the closet. And that last hour, I kept the door open almost all the way, and I was fine. So it was something in the closet. Something's off-gassing. And then she found out it was some kind of inflatable pool toy that was off-gassing some plastic fumes. And it was years old, too. It wasn't new, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect you, right, Denise? I mean, you never were affected by that. But for me, I mean, right away. And you're somebody that would get more headaches on a somewhat regular basis. I never get headaches. And it was like attacking me.
So you're very sensitive.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why, and that's also how you know that someone snuck salt or oil into your food.
That's
You
right. That's
taste
how I
it
know.
and you know right away.
And it's always been like that for me. If I look back in history, I wrote a book called Live to 150. It's available for free. And one of the chapters is about my story. And as far back as I can remember, I didn't used to eat meat. I didn't want to eat meat. I didn't know what vegan was. I just didn't want to eat it. And I didn't want to eat salt. If I had a choice, I was always go with no salt. And probably thinking back at it now, the more I think, low fat was also a theme with my eating. Low salt, low fat, no animal meat. Okay, that's what I was doing. And that's just because I was listening to my body, because I'm so sensitive. I'm like the canary in the coal mine. So it's good in the fact that I probably will never develop chronic illness. Like, Denise, right? So you eat the same thing I do. It doesn't affect you in the least. And I'm like doubling over in pain, like I'm going to die. And I'm like, I can't ever do that again. So like, that's why I'll never probably develop chronic non-communicable disease. It's not possible because my body won't let me. But not everybody's like that.
That's good.
Yeah,
Do we want to give other folks in the room a chance to talk? Sorry, Paul, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot, but I just want to add one thing about the salt, the sodium. Dr. Greger's research, he says miso paste, which is high sodium, there's the soy, I don't know, I forget exactly what he says, but it's not as bad as eating sodium, and that's what he uses in his books and his recipes. And we made a mushroom chowder from his latest book, and the amount of miso paste was 2 tablespoons, and I'm there, 2 tablespoons. Yeah, all his other books was teaspoons, and I'm reading, and this book has tablespoons, and I'm wondering if that was a mistake. You know, that when they
Typo.
did the,
Well,
because now all of a sudden it's tablespoons instead of teaspoons.
well,
So
here's how.
let me
Here's
just
how.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I
Well,
just want to say the next day, my joints were aching me.
oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wait,
Yeah.
let me give you some feedback. First of all, Dr. Greger, I believe, is the one who says people always like to hear good things about their bad habits, right? I would include miso
Yeah.
in that, okay? Because even if it doesn't raise your blood pressure, because that's what the word on the street is, right? Well, it's soy based, which Dr. Rogers said avoid, okay? But for me, I've had to not go on events anymore because my body reacts so badly to that. People say it doesn't raise your blood pressure. That's what they say because it's fermented, but it is a hidden source of added sodium. And I will tell you that even if it doesn't raise your blood pressure, which I don't necessarily believe, I'm sure you could find a scientific study that says that, but as Dr. Campbell says, all the science is bought and paid for. But I can tell you that even if it does not raise your blood pressure, you will still suffer all the negative health effects of eating added sodium, right? Just like your
A
joints and
tablespoon
other
of
stuff.
miso, I just Googled it. A tablespoon of miso has between 450 and 634 milligrams of sodium, depending
Yeah.
on whether it's red, yellow, or white miso. So that was a big sodium hit for you, Paul, if you did a whole tablespoon.
Well, yeah, but it was 4 servings, so Stephanie and I ate it over 2 nights.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
but
yeah,
both
that's not good.
those next days on both times, my back, my joints, everything was
Yeah.
aching.
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't be fooled. Even if someone says, don't worry, hey, Paul, don't worry, it's not going to raise your blood pressure. Well, what about all the other negative health effects of eating added sodium? They're all still there. They don't make any claims against those.
Yeah.
That all it is added salt in disguise. Miso equals added salt in disguise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sodium impacts your ability to heal. So if your body was usually getting rid of inflammatory inflammation, and it couldn't because it was battling getting rid of the sodium.
Yeah, so if you ask me, a lot of these little sneak or tricks or hacks, like they say, is like, let's say miso is a hack for that flavor of salt, because it is salt. That's why it tastes like it. And then nuts and seeds in moderation, or avocado for the fats. Well, I think it's just that people aren't there yet, but the problem is that if you're consuming on purpose added fats that are, you're adding the fats into your food, you're adding the salt into your food, are you really trying to achieve health optimization? I think the answer is no. Are you doing better than you were doing on what you were doing in the past? Probably, maybe. But just as Dr. Rogers says, we want to do the best we can, because you don't know when that disease is going to set in. So we should be trying to do the best we can. That's kind of why we call our stuff health optimization, right? And like the other doctors that you're saying that I noticed they don't say that. They don't, so you got to consider that.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, someone who can be just fine with doing half the things that we're suggesting, they might, but I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows the answer to that question. I can tell you the miso for sure, 100% certainty. I cannot eat that stuff. That is a cheat meal for me, anything with miso in it. And if I eat it meal after meal, like I've done at different events, I get really, really ill. It's just the same to me as eating added salt. And now that Dr. Rogers, has enlightened me or started me questioning about sodium or soy in general, there's twice the reasons for me to not have that stuff.
Right. But
Because
Mike, one of the things I noticed, he didn't know what it was. He didn't seem to know what it was. So I don't think he did any research on it. But I think what you're saying, my effect, I could eat a small amount of the miso, but was when I had the more, I felt it.
Yes, and here's the thing I don't like, something that rubs me the wrong way in general with folks in this space, is that folks who add and use miso in their food, they still claim that this food has no added salt. And that
Yeah.
to me rubs me the wrong way. Right? Because I know how my body reacts. My body would never agree with that statement. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wish it would. I
It's
wish.
like I like to get on one of those, Dr. Greger does the, Q&As often on Facebook or
Yeah.
YouTube, and you send in questions. So
Yeah.
love to get one of those questions to him.
Yeah, I've asked people because people have questioned, I think on this video, on this Dr. Ryder's high fat video that we did on the YouTube comments, one of the things someone brought up was this exact point that you brought up, Paul, which is, it was either Dr. Greger or miso or just, it's fermented. It doesn't raise your blood pressure. And studies show this. And I said, can you please link me the studies so that I can look at them? And the person never responded. I think eventually they did respond. I'll go back and look at it. And it said, "What are you asking? I don't understand." I'm like, I was pretty clear. I mean, I just want to see why this doesn't raise your blood pressure, because I can't believe it. I just don't believe it. I'm sure somebody says that somewhere, but is that true science? Is that accurate? I have a feeling that the people that did that probably have some other vested interest in the outcome. I think, like Dr. Campbell says, almost all science is like that, unfortunately. Yeah, but anyway, I hope that just doing this interview with Dr. Rogers has kind of opened everyone's mind to recognizing how dangerous consuming fat is. It's fine as long as you're up to 10%. I don't want people to worry too much. Well, anything above that sounds like it's detrimental. And that's kind of, I guess, the point of why we wanted to do this month, is just to get people thinking, because it's a process. And if here's just some statistics. Denise and I ran through the LLMs and got some statistics. Almost 80% of adults in the United States have a BMI above normal. Almost 80%. And then about 80% of all illnesses are non-communicable diseases, which are created by lifestyle, and almost 80% of causes of death, according to the World Health Organization, are caused by non-communicable diseases. So this is far-reaching, right? And I do think that high fat, high sodium are the major factors. And of course, you still need the other parts, the other 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. But these are the biggest ones that people suffer from the most, I think, that I see, because it's so hard for us to go out and eat. And it's because of this high fat content.
Yeah. By the way, if you all enjoy nuts, we found a nut hack. There's one nut that is actually low in fat, and it's a chestnut. So we're looking into planting our own Japanese chestnut trees. I think most of the American chestnut trees were affected by the blight, but the Japanese chestnut trees will grow in growing zones 4 through 8, and we're in 5A, so it should work for us. It probably will work for you too.
Actually, I'm out at Mountain Ridge Farm right now. Like, Denise is inside in the farmhouse, and I'm outside. And yeah, we're gonna plant it here because it's better than you think. Actually, I learned this in the last year because we were doing events with chestnuts. I didn't realize this. Like I said, soy is not your average bean. Soy should not be considered a bean, in my opinion. It's so high in fat. Chestnuts should not be considered a nut, almost, because it's so low in fat. When I say low, I mean like exponentially lower in fat. I don't mean just a couple points, right? It's exponentially lower. So you can eat all you want. There's no holding
soup
back
with it.
Yeah,
You
we
can
make
make
soup.
stews with it, like a winter stew, and it's kind of creamy. It's pretty delicious.
Yeah, so it's these things. By diving into this stuff, we learn. Well, look, we just discovered something really cool in the last year. Is that, yeah, if you really want nuts, if you want that taste, you want that mouthfeel, then just get chestnuts. Yeah, I mean, like Denise said, we want to grow them here. We want to have them here at the farm. This is what we call Mountain Ridge Farm. It's a off-grid, regenerative, zero chemical, which is better than organic farm. And right now we're growing grapes, cherries, figs, and then we want to grow also. We're going to plant one soon, right? A chestnut tree.
Yeah. Our friend Carla found chestnuts in a bag and in like a zipper sealed aluminum foil type bag at Costco. If y'all like to shop at Costco, they're more expensive that way, but you can find them.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a relief to know that there's stuff out there like this. Cause I've been thinking for the longest time, like nuts and seeds are just something, I don't know. But then you hear about the chestnut and you're like, okay, we can do that.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Melanie, I see you. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep.
Oh, I wanted to mention one thing about salt. If
Yes.
someone's looking for a salty flavor, they can try the Ume plum vinegar. It's by Eden.
Oh,
In a teaspoon of that, it has 420 milligrams of sodium, as opposed to a teaspoon of salt is like 2,000, over 2,000. And you can also put it in a little spray bottle with some water and then spray it onto your food. So you're getting a whole lot less, but you do get a little bit of that salty flavor.
right. Okay. So it sounds like it's kind of like miso in a way, because it's significantly lower in salt. It's still there, right? But
Right, and it is in a vinegar form, whereas miso is usually a paste.
right. So yeah, you can more easily add it to existing prepared foods, right? Without having to prepare them yourself.
Right, and I do have chickpea miso, which I hardly ever use, but in regard to Dr. Greger's recipes, I do notice he uses an awful lot of either fat or nuts or seeds and salt or miso. And if I do make a recipe by him, I always either leave it out or cut it down to like a minuscule amount.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah,
get
that's a
that
good.
flavor.
That's good.
I would say that's wise from hearing what you and Paul are saying, because I haven't looked at his cookbooks, but yeah, I mean, we might do a month talking about sodium. There's so much more we could talk about with this, and so much we've learned, Denise and I, in the last year. So many new things about it. So, go ahead.
When will you be back in Naples?
Naples, probably not till November, I think, right, Denise?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be doing these every month, and next month I think what we're going to do is talk about mitochondria, and also the role that has on your health span and longevity. Some different things that I've been looking into in the last week, and Dr. Rogers is he's very knowledgeable about helping or harming your mitochondria. It's something that most people never talk about with health, but it's like I'd say it's the building blocks of everything that has to do with your health, and it's sad that most people don't talk about it. I mean, it's only been the last year that I've really been starting to focus on that.
Yeah. I love Dr. Rogers, and I've been following him ever since I became aware of him. I do think I don't agree with everything he says, and some of it's far beyond me, but I always get the gist of what he's saying. But I think sometimes he might exclude some people because they would say, well, I'm not doing that, and I think any improvement you can make is beneficial. But
yes.
I do love him. I think he has a lot of great information.
Yeah, I would agree on what you said, because like if we consider what we talked about with the recipes in Dr. Greger's cookbooks and what others have said or not said, it is kind of like slowly bringing people to a little bit better place over time. And there's great value in that, if you ask me. The problem is I can't do that. Like I've told you, I'm so hypersensitive. I've never been able to do that. And actually, I guess for good reason, because I only have one life and I'd rather not live it ill. So that's it kind of gives me, direction to what we should do. And like I said, we focus on health optimization. Yeah, a lot of these can be very challenging, and I have to keep my mind open because I keep learning new things, some of which is totally new that I never understood, some of which supports what we're doing, and some of which says, well, you don't even need to focus on that. That's not important. So that's what we try to be. That's what we consider our role, is just kind of what's the best we can do. And I think Dr. Rogers is a great example of that. And just like you said, Melanie, he will turn people off. I think, but he's very direct. That's what I say. He's very direct. He doesn't waste anybody's time.
That's what I like about him.
Sugarcoat.
He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't, fluff it up. I mean, I want to hear the truth. And for
Yes.
me, it's been an evolution. I mean, I've been vegan for over 35 years. But
Wow.
as I learned more and more about this, I've gotten better. So it has been an evolution. I didn't just wake up one day and decide I'm gonna stop this, this, and this. It's
Mhm.
just been a plan. And
Yeah.
like I took Dr. Furman's nutritional education trainer course and got certified by him, but I
Okay.
still don't agree with everything that he says, like the the nuts and the seeds. I personally don't do well eating a lot of that stuff. I mean, I'll have a little, and I don't even mean a handful. I might put 2 or 3 walnuts on something, and certainly not every day. But I try to remain open to all the new things that I learn. But ultimately, I would try to teach people to listen to your own body too. I mean,
Yeah.
because not everyone's going to be like you, or your wife's maybe a little luckier, she doesn't react as much, but maybe actually that's a blessing in disguise that you do,
Uh-huh. No,
because then
also,
you can avoid those things.
yeah, it is a blessing in disguise, for sure. I mean, because I don't like to be sick. Nobody likes to be sick. I've never heard
No.
of anybody that likes to be sick. So I just don't get that opportunity to be sick. But I have to, I have to catch it right away. That's what I do. My body catches it right away.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Dr. Furman. I would say, like, when I think about like the OG doctors, the old school, I would put him in there too. I mean, yes, he's done amazing work. He has great value with what he does. But if I think back about when he started, which is a time when I didn't even know what veganism was, I mean, that was a time when, nuts and tofu and all this stuff, that was really big into vegan and plant-based eating. There wasn't much else. There wasn't a lot of focus on anything else. There wasn't a lot of knowledge. So I think that maybe, like a lot of people, like even myself, I have a tendency, once I hear something, to stick with it, and I don't want to change. I think that that's probably a factor in what he's doing, what Dr. Greger's doing, and others. They've got their audiences and they've got their own beliefs that they've had for a much longer period of time than I have. I mean, they're definitely more wise. They've got more experience than I do. But the question is, are they stuck in the past, or are they truly doing the best that someone can to optimize their health? And that's where I don't know
Who
the
knows?
answer. So I keep learning.
Well, I know I became acquainted with Dr. Furman many, many years ago when I used to go to Natural Hygiene Society
Right.
conferences. They were usually in the summer. And I heard him lecture. And at the time, I lived in Connecticut and he lived in New Jersey. And I had had some mold exposure and I was getting pretty sick from it. So I actually went to his home and I did a water fast for 21 days. And then I also did a 14-day water fast at Dr. Scott's when he was alive in Cleveland. But that's how I learned about all these people, because back when I got into this, there was no internet. There was nobody doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, no information, no magazines, no nothing. So that was my support for the year, going to those meetings. And I never really cared about being different. That didn't bother me so much, but it is nice to connect with people who are doing what you're doing.
Yes. And do you know Paul is in Naples too? Paul, who's on this call. I don't know if you know each other in person or not, but you're both in Naples.
No, we don't know each other.
No, I don't.
Well, you can connect there. You can type your information into the chat or say it, or if you want to exchange, or I can give it to you. I can connect to you after the meeting or something.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with using Zoom. I mean, I can give you my email. It's meldibu@yahoo.com, and I'm in Cape Coral.
Okay, there, yeah, in Cape Coral. It's not too far.
Okay. Did you attend any of the events at Island Walk?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have more, right, Paul? We will have more as the weather gets colder.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
in November.
November 13th might be a go. I'm going to confirm that on Monday.
Okay.
I think they're going to be done November 5th with the renovation. So I think the 13th will be okay.
Okay. And Melanie, you mentioned mold exposure. Something else I wanted to talk about very quickly since you brought that up. It's not really part of this month, but we're going to give it, we do this health optimization cruise is one of our events that we do. And actually this year, I'm going to give a talk on indoor air quality. And mold has so much to do with indoor air quality, and indoor air quality has so much to do with optimizing your health. It's also something that a lot of the people in the space never bring up. And I have had a lot of experience with it. I'm hypersensitive, of course, to all these things. And I ran an organization called the Healthy Air Alliance back in the late 90s. And I know all about what it takes to optimize your indoor air quality. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. But most people are doing none of it. That's the problem.
I
And so
would love
anybody,
some information on that because I feel like there's something in my house that might be getting my eyes, you know,
yes.
like when I wake up in the morning, and I was thinking about having the air ducts cleaned, but who knows
Well,
what they spray in there.
if you want to connect with me, you know, you have my contact, right? My email, my phone number.
Actually, you know
let me,
what? If you could give that to me.
yeah.
I don't think I do have your email.
Let me just give you my phone number. You can call or text and we'll exchange the rest of the information, but it's
Okay.
240
Uh-huh.
205
Uh-huh.
0417.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I would love that. I would love to get some information on that.
I know all about, yeah, if you got mold that you are breathing in through an indoor environment. I know all about it. Yeah, I've been through. It's not that complicated, and it blows my mind that I did all this back in the 90s, and you'd think that since it's not that complicated, you can prevent it. That there would be regulations in place that would require certain things, and there really aren't. Nothing's changed since the 90s in that regard. Just like the food, right? All the food that we eat that harms us, it's all illegal. So I guess you can't depend on the government to do anything.
No, absolutely not.
All right. Well, it's 12:02. So anybody else had any last points, and we can wrap it up. I guess that's it. Denise, you want to maybe give us a little summary from where you are?
Oh, the summary. I was going to share my screen with the health optimization slide, but I still can't share.
Well, yeah, actually, we can tell you. I think you all know. Well, Paul definitely knows. Paul's going to be with us on the Health Optimization Cruise, which is an annual event in January. It's all about taking care of yourself the best you can, and the food matches. That's the thing. The food matches the teachings. We're doing a health optimization safari in December, if you ever want to do that. And we get to go to a vegan school where I think we're starting a project there, a permaculture project at the vegan school, our organization. So you get to see all that, meet the students, meet the people involved with the nonprofit there in Africa. And then we also do these clubs, right? These are totally free. And next month we'll do, I think, mitochondria. And I'm going to do the interview with Dr. Rogers a week from today. And it'll be ready at that point to watch. And then we'll have our meeting about a month from today. And we're going to continue to have in-person meetings as well, as long as we can get venues. Because like Paul said, we'll be at Island Walk in November. And then I think before that, up in the villages, we have the back room, meeting room of a coffee shop where folks are meeting right now, actually. And we hope to do these all over. The potlucks there meet the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. And so the food matches the teachings. That's what we want to do. We want to make sure that you guys realize that there's others who are out there that are trying their best, and that you can go out of your house and do this too. So that's the future, I think, and I believe. So that's it. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.